Growing in a raised bed is an excellent idea. You have to water a lot less than if you're growing containers. There's a lot less weeds than if you're just growing in the ground, and you can control exactly what kind of growing medium you want your plants in. So join me in this video and let me show you how to start your very own raised bed garden. Hello everyone, this is Dylan from the Trinidad Gardener channel, and I'm so happy that you made it for this video because I'm going to be showing you how to start your very own raised bed garden. A raised bed garden has a lot less inconveniences than growing in the ground and a lot more conveniences than growing in simply containers. For instance, you have a lot more space in a raised bed garden. So let me guide you through 5 simple steps for setting up your very own raised bed garden. Simple, quick, and affordable. Let's get to it. Step 1 is going to be very simply knowing what do you want to plant, because knowing that is going to help us go through the different other steps. If we don't know what we want to plant, we don't know how to cater for it in terms of location. Should it get a lot of sunlight? Should it get less sunlight? For instance, if you're planning to grow a herb garden, then you want to put it somewhere that is not as much exposed to the sun, maybe 4 to 5 hours of sunlight. If you are growing things that are, edible, such as tomatoes, your peppers, right? Even lettuce and cabbage, those vegetables need a lot of sunlight. So you're going to want to choose the location based on that. Step 2 is simply going to be the location of your raised bed. A raised bed is not mobile like your containers. You want to make sure that your raised bed is somewhere where it has the correct exposure to sunlight that you need for whichever crops you plan to grow. So then you need to cater for that. So what you should do is take a day or two and observe where the sun travels in your property, all right, or wherever you plan to be growing. And depending on where it is, you need to look in the morning and in the afternoon to see if it's getting shaded out, because sometimes in the morning time there could be full sun and then the afternoon there is shade in a certain area. So if you want to have things like tomatoes and peppers, then you're going to want to put it somewhere where you get 8 hours minimum of sunlight. If it's something like a herb garden, maybe it could be something that has morning sunlight and then afternoon shade, but you want to be careful because you don't want to have a situation where you see good sunlight in the morning time, but you don't cater that in the afternoon there's a tree or a building that projects a shadow on those plants, because it's not going to do any favors to your garden to have insufficient exposure to sunlight for that energy. You need the correct amount of sunlight depending on what crops you need to grow. That's why step 1 was so important, to know exactly what you plan to grow in your raised bed. A rule of thumb, if you're not sure what you plan to grow, give it full sunlight, because it's easier to provide shade when there's too much sun than to provide more sun when there is natural shade from a tree or a building. Now the third step is going to be deciding what kind of material you want to use for your raised bed. I would always say use whatever you have on hand and available. If you're going to buy, I would suggest that you start your raised bed with blocks, and let me explain why. A lot of tutorials that I've seen on building your raised beds, they assume that you either have knowledge about construction, or that you have a lot of money to buy a lot of materials, or that you have a lot of power tools. That's something that not everyone has. So buying blocks is going to require you to have the least amount of knowledge, spend a very little amount of money, and require absolutely no tools to build them. So let's have a look on what a raised bed built with blocks would look like. Okay, so let me show you just how absolutely simple it is to make a raised bed using these blocks, right? These are concrete blocks. They use them to make foundations, right? You can get a block like this for just around $6.50. All right, so super cheap for one of these blocks. Another good thing is that if you have a wall, then that saves you from having to use blocks, because you already have this part barred off, right? And this is the adjoining part of my existing raised bed garden. Okay, so I'm just going to take this one here, right? So rest that against the wall. Okay, I've got another one here. If you are doing this, I recommend that you use gloves. All right, do as I say, not as I do, right? And then let's say we're making a very small herb garden, right? I would then just come in there, cross it off. Now if you notice, I didn't put the block over here because I'll be wasting the length of it. It's not necessary. This is more than fine for holding in the dirt. And then for this part there, I can use something like this, right? and holding the dirt there. And then I can just load up soil inside here. And then if in the future I want to have a little more space for my raised bed, then super easy. Just remove this there. I'd probably put it here. Right, then I'd get another block. So I can steal a block from over here. Up. And then I put it right there. And now I've got an even longer raised bed, and it doesn't matter what you have at the bottom. If it's concrete, it's fine. It's not going to change anything. The roots are going to be fine. If it's dirt, then it's fine. It's extra soil that your roots might pierce through your raised bed soil and go into the dirt underneath. Perfectly fine. And if there's weeds, you don't need to worry about getting rid of those weeds at the bottom, because you're pretty much going to suffocate them by putting your garden soil for your raised bed. Right, guys, so super easy to make your raised beds with these blocks here. So a project like this here, this existing raised bed that has two fully grown pimento trees and a fully grown okra and space for a few more things. There's kale over there, there's a few bits of herbs here and there, parsley and bandania here and there. This entire project here would have costed me I think $60, $60 or $65 in blocks, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 blocks using the wall. The fourth step is simply going to be what size your raised bed should be. That's a question that we all have. I would say a simple rule is make your raised bed as long as you want, but no wider than 4 feet. The reason for that is that if you have 4 feet of width, if you stand on one side, you can reach over half, which is 2 feet, and from the other side, and the other half, which is 2 feet. And then you can do as long as you want with that. And I'll show you what that would look like right now. So we're going to use this raised bed as an example. I've decided to build the raised bed away from the wall. So the length is running from the wall away, and the width is along the wall here. The width is just over 3 feet. So that means if I stand on this side, I can comfortably reach 1.5 feet to do any gardening on this side here. And then for this side, I just have to stand on this side and I can comfortably reach this side here. Now, if I had made it this long from the wall and then this far, it would be very difficult to reach whatever was in the middle. So you have to be aware of that. You want your width to be just around 3 to 4 feet. No more than 4 feet, otherwise you're going to find yourself struggling to reach the middle of the bed, and it'll probably discourage you from using the middle of the bed, and that won't be good. And the fifth and final step is going to be soil. The good thing about a raised bed is you can choose exactly what type of soil you put for your plants. So depending on what you want to grow. If you're growing something like watermelon, you want a nice sandy soil, loamy soil for your watermelon. But for the majority of your crops, especially if you're doing a kitchen garden, which is what the majority of us are trying to do with a home garden, we're going to want something that is well draining, has enough retention of water, and full of organic matter. That's going to help with our water retention, as well as provide a lot of good home for good soil micrology, which is, the soil microorganisms that help your plants to grow, that beneficial bacteria and fungi that can be found in the soil. Those are very important. Here's a look at what that type of soil would look like. Let's just have a look at the soil here. This soil is about 80% compost and about 20% topsoil. Right, you can actually look into it and see that there's a lot of just organic matter, right? And then you have a lot of humus. Humus is the exoskeleton of of anything that was alive at some point, right? So we have some roots here, some twigs. These are all things that help hold on to moisture. This is sort of what you want your soil to look like, right? If you look at the soil, I can squeeze it in, have it compact, and then it just crumbles apart after. That's really good soil, really nice, good composted material with a lot of nutrients in it, with some topsoil, just some regular garden soil. And that's pretty much what I use on this raised bed. Another thing that I want to talk about is that your raised bed doesn't have to be as deep as some might think. This itself is probably just around 8 inches here, no more than 9 inches for sure. And yeah, I have some pretty big pimento trees here. They're at the end of their lives here. They've been producing for about 4 or 5 months now. So a lot of the leaves have dropped off. Still have some pimentos on it. All right, only 2 trees. Not as much as before, but we still have something. So you really don't have to worry about having a super deep bed to have success with your raised bed garden. All right, as I said, this is just 1 block height. I put up another block over there and some more here just to keep my dog out of the garden, but apart from that, the soil itself, this is more than enough. You really don't have to overdo the depth of soil. And that's how easy it is to start your raised bed garden. Super simple, super easy. So remember that you can join us on Instagram at the Trinidad and Tobago channel. Remember as well, if you have any questions or comments, leave it below. I'll be happy to get back to you. This has been Dylan with the Trinidad and Tobago channel, reminding you to get up and get growing. Take care.